Nelson Mandela, No Easy Walk to Freedom, Presidential Address, 1953. Since 1912 and year after year thereafter, in their homes and local areas, in provincial and national gatherings, on trains and buses, in the factories, farms, villages, and shanty towns, schools, and prisons, the African people have discussed the shameful misdeeds of those who rule the country. Year after year they have raised their voices in condemnation of the grinding poverty of the people, the low wages, the acute shortage of land, the inhumane exploitation, and the whole policy of white domination. But instead of more freedom, repression began to grow in volume and intensity, and it seemed that all their sacrifices would end up in smoke and dust. Today, the entire country knows that their labors were not in vain, for a new spirit and new ideas have gripped our people. Today, the people speak the language of action. There is a mighty awakening among the men and women of our country, and the year stands 1952 out as the year of this upsurge of national consciousness. In June 1952, the African National Congress and the South African Indian Congress, bearing in mind their responsibility as the representatives of downtrodden and oppressed people of South Africa, took the plunge and launched the campaign for the defiance of unjust laws. Starting off in Port Elizabeth in the early hours of June 6th with only 33 defiers in action, and then in Johannesburg in the afternoon of the same day with 106 defiers, it spread throughout the country like wildfire. Factory and office workers, doctors, lawyers, teachers, students, and the clergy, African, coloreds, Indians, Europeans, old and young, all rallied to the national call and defied the passed laws and the curfew and the railway apathy regulations. At the end of the year, more than 8,000 people of all races had defied. The campaign called for immediate and heavy sacrifices. Workers lost their jobs, chiefs and teachers were expelled from the service, doctors, lawyers, and businessmen gave up their practices and businesses and elected to go to jail. Defiance was a step of great political significance. It released strong social forces which affected thousands of our countrymen. It was an effective way of getting the masses to function politically, a powerful method of voicing our indignation against the reactionary policies of the government. It was one of the best ways of exerting pressure on the government and extremely dangerous to the stability and security of the state. It inspired and aroused our people from a conquered and servile community of yes-men to a militant and uncompromising band of camaraderies. The entire country was transformed into battle zones where the forces of liberation were locked up in immortal conflict against those of reaction and evil. Our flag flew in every battlefield, and thousands of our countrymen rallied around it. We held the initiative, and the forces of freedom were advancing on all fronts. It was against this background and at the height of this campaign that we held our last annual provincial conference in Pretoria from the 10th to the 12th of October last year. In a way, that conference was a welcome reception of those who had returned from the battlefields and a farewell to those who were still going to the action. The spirit of defiance and action dominated the entire conference. Today, we meet under totally different conditions. By the end of July last year, the campaign had reached a stage where it had to be suppressed by the government, or it would impose its own policies on the country.